In fact, the suspect for the deaths of the two men whose remains were found in the suitcases in Bristol has been named now as Colombian national Justin Andres Mosquera.
It comes after more human remains were found at an address in Shepherd's Bush in London, and police believe they are connected to those found in those suitcases dumped near Clifton Suspension Bridge.
In fact, police believe there are still two male victims, although formal identification is yet to take place.
Let's talk to former Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville. Mike, this is incredibly grim. Where are we in terms of the investigation?
Yes, this is a shocking case, isn't it? But as far as the main aspects of the police investigation now will be to find this suspect Mosquera, who's been named. Every effort will be being taken to find him now. So detectives will be looking at has he left the country? There'll be an old ports message at the sea and airports to look out for him. All sorts of detectives will be making inquiries into this man's background. It really is to find him, but this is a really unusual and vile case to the weight of two men in two suitcases. It's quite incredible, isn't it, that he was seen on the suspension bridge carrying those suitcases? Quite incredible.
I mean, of course, you wonder why on earth he went to Clifton in Bristol in the first place. And it is also widely known, if you do know Bristol, that the suspension bridge is absolutely covered with CCTV. So mainly because it's sort of a well-known place since Victorian times of committing suicide and throwing yourself off. So, I mean, either he didn't know, or we don't know what he was doing there, and we don't know how on earth he managed to lug two very, very heavy suitcases to the edge, but yet still not push them over, which is apparently what he must have been thinking of.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And we know from previous murder cases that the CCTV from the suspension bridge is very good and can spot vehicles and people on there, as you say, because of possible suicide attempts and whatever else. But the police will now be absolutely the key priority is to find him. They'll be using all sorts of facial recognition systems if he can be traced like that. What I noticed with his dress, there were things he was wearing. He's wearing all sorts of branded logos on his backpack, on his clothing. Things like that can be used to try and trace him. But has he left the country? I remember meeting the most interesting man I ever met, I think, in the police, was a Colombian police minister who asked me the most difficult questions in the most politest way. The one place I didn't want to go, though, is Colombia. Who would want to go there as a policing expert? Because it's just, people just associate it with the crime and drugs, don't they? So what was he doing here, and why was these men murdered? It's quite an incredible case.
I mean, what is particularly grim, of course, is that they have discovered more human remains in London, but they're not looking for any more victims. So that obviously indicates that people have been dissected somewhat, which is an awful revelation in and of itself.
Yes, so who are, so the aspects of these two men, why were they killed? What is the motive here? How are they going to find him and prosecute him for these cases? And who else is involved? Because we've seen that there was an arrest in Greenwich. So obviously there's been some assistance here. He's been assisted in some way, either destruction of evidence or as you say, the dissection of these bodies. It's a very strange case, as we keep saying. So the police seem to be working hard to discover where he is, and let's hope they find him as soon as possible.
I was looking at the coverage, which of course is now it's in Bristol, but now it's also around the Shepherd's Bush area in London, and they had helicopters up, and I was thinking, why have they got helicopters up? Do they think he's on the run?
Well, they may use helicopters if there's a vehicle involved. I can't see any other reason to try. You wouldn't be trying to track a particular person with helicopters unless there was a vehicle and you could track it down the street. So I'm not sure that's fully involved. I mean, they're police helicopters used all the time for all manner of incidents. So the fact that helicopter was flying over Shepherd's Bush, it may well be that was a completely different scenario or incident they were dealing with.